Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in. The term threat actor is often used as though it means any dangerous thing found in a computer system. People may apply it to malware, a suspicious message, an exposed password, or even an outage. That confusion creates a practical problem, because a security team responds differently to a responsible party than it responds to a tool, a weakness, or an event. The central question is not simply what happened, but who made or directed the malicious choices behind what happened. Identifying that responsible person, group, or organization helps defenders think more clearly about intent, likely targets, persistence, resources, and possible next actions. In this episode, we will define a threat actor, separate the term from nearby cybersecurity concepts, examine several common motivations, and show how careful use of the term improves investigation, risk decisions, and communication. A threat actor is a person, group, or organization responsible for malicious activity. The actor is the decision-making party behind the behavior, even when software, stolen accounts, or automated systems carry out parts of the activity. A threat is broader because it describes a potential source or cause of harm, while an attack is an action taken to cause harm or gain unauthorized access. A vulnerability is a weakness that may make the attack easier, and a tool is something the actor uses. Motivation explains why the actor acts, while an objective describes the more immediate result the actor is trying to achieve. These terms are often confused because they appear together during the same incident, but they describe different parts of the problem. Keeping the actor, action, weakness, tool, objective, and motivation separate gives the listener a reliable foundation for understanding the rest of the episode. A threat actor can operate alone, as part of an informal group, or through a structured organization with leadership, funding, and assigned roles. The label does not depend on whether the actor is famous, highly skilled, or publicly identified. It depends on responsibility for malicious choices and actions. Threat actors may be external to the organization they target, but they may also be insiders who intentionally misuse legitimate access. A person whose account has been compromised is not automatically the threat actor, because that person may be a victim whose identity is being abused. Likewise, an automated bot is usually a mechanism rather than the responsible actor, unless the discussion is using actor in a looser technical sense. For clear analysis, it is better to identify the human or organizational decision-maker when the evidence supports that conclusion, and to acknowledge uncertainty when it does not. Motivation is one of the most useful ways to understand a threat actor, but it should not be treated as a perfect label. Common motivations include money, espionage, disruption, ideology, and curiosity. An actor may have more than one motive, and the motive can change during an operation. Motivation also differs from objective. Money may be the underlying motive, while the immediate objective is to steal account access, interrupt a service, or obtain data that can later be sold. Espionage may be the motive, while the objective is long-term access to sensitive information. Understanding the difference helps defenders avoid shallow conclusions based only on the first visible action. Motivation can suggest what the actor values and how long the activity may continue, but it remains an assessment that should be supported by evidence rather than assumed from a stereotype. Financially motivated threat actors seek economic benefit. That benefit may come from direct theft, fraud, extortion, resale of stolen information, unauthorized use of computing resources, or services provided to other malicious actors. The financial motive does not tell you exactly how skilled the actor is, or which technique will be used. Some financially motivated activity is opportunistic and broad, while other activity is patient, selective, and highly organized. For defenders, the important point is that money creates incentives that shape target selection and behavior. Systems connected to payments, valuable accounts, sensitive records, and business operations may attract attention because they can be converted into profit or leverage. Controls such as strong identity protection, transaction monitoring, reliable backups, access limits, and well-preserved logs address different parts of that problem. The response should focus on the observed behavior and exposed assets, not on a simplistic assumption that every financially motivated actor behaves the same way. Espionage is motivated by the desire to gain information or access that creates strategic, political, military, technological, or commercial advantage. An espionage-focused actor often values secrecy and continued access more than immediate public impact. The actor may seek sensitive communications, research, plans, credentials, relationships, or knowledge about how an organization operates. Espionage is frequently associated with state-sponsored activity, but the concept is broader than any one type of sponsor and should not be assigned without evidence. A quiet intrusion does not automatically prove espionage, and the discovery of a familiar tool does not establish who directed its use. Defenders should pay attention to unusual access patterns, attempts to reach high-value information, persistence across time, and movement towards sensitive repositories. Data classification, least privilege, strong authentication, segmentation, and long-term monitoring can reduce opportunity and make unauthorized collection more visible. Disruption is a motivation centered on stopping, degrading, delaying, or destabilizing a service, process, or institution. The desired result may be operational interruption, public pressure, loss of confidence, coercion, or a demonstration of capability. Disruption must be separated from disruptive effect. An outage can occur because of error, equipment failure, or an attack whose primary motive is something else. A financially motivated actor may cause disruption to increase leverage, which means the disruption is a tactic or objective rather than the underlying motive. That distinction changes the defensive response. Preventive controls remain important, but resilience, recovery procedures, communication plans, redundant capacity, and tested restoration processes become especially valuable when availability is a likely target. The goal is not to guess a dramatic motive from every interruption. It is to determine whether someone deliberately sought the disruption and what evidence supports that assessment. Before we continue, here is a brief promotional message. This episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy provides a place for people who want to continue developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. It is designed for thoughtful learners and working professionals who want explanations that connect technical ideas to real security decisions without relying on hype or shortcuts. You can visit baremetalcyber.com to explore the Academy and see the learning opportunities currently available. Understanding subjects such as threat actors becomes more useful when the definitions, evidence, and practical consequences are studied together. Now, let's return to the main lesson and examine two motivations that are often misunderstood.
Ideology can motivate malicious activity when an actor uses unauthorized digital action to support a political, social, religious, or cultural cause. The actor may seek attention, embarrassment, pressure, symbolic impact, or disruption aimed at an organization associated with an opposing view. Public messaging and visible claims may be more important to an ideologically motivated actor than secrecy, although that is not always the case. It is also important not to confuse strong beliefs, lawful protest, or ordinary advocacy with threat activity. The threat actor label applies when a person, group, or organization is responsible for malicious or unauthorized action, not merely because it holds a controversial position. For defenders, ideological motivation may influence timing, target selection, and interest in public-facing systems. However, public claims can be exaggerated or false, so attribution and motive should still be evaluated through evidence rather than accepted at face value. Curiosity is a less dramatic motivation, but it can still lead to unauthorized and harmful activity. A person may probe systems to learn how they work, test personal skill, seek recognition, or satisfy a desire to explore beyond permitted boundaries. Curiosity does not erase responsibility. Accessing a system without authorization can expose data, interrupt operations, damage evidence, or create openings that others later exploit, even when the actor did not begin with a plan to cause serious harm. At the same time, a security researcher working with permission and following an agreed disclosure process should not be labeled a threat actor merely for finding a weakness. Authorization, intent, conduct, and response to boundaries all matter. Defenders should avoid treating every curious actor as highly organized, but they should also avoid dismissing unauthorized activity as harmless experimentation. The behavior and its consequences still require a measured security response. Motivation alone does not determine how dangerous a threat actor is. A useful assessment also considers capability, intent, opportunity, access, patience, resources, and knowledge of the target. Capability describes what the actor can realistically do. Intent describes what the actor is willing and trying to do. Opportunity describes the conditions that make action possible, including exposed services, weak controls, trusted access, or unmonitored pathways. An actor may be strongly motivated, but unable to reach a protected asset, while another actor may have limited motivation yet possess unusual access that makes harmful action easier. This is why a threat actor category should not be treated as a complete risk rating. Defenders reduce risk by changing opportunity, limiting access, detecting behavior, protecting valuable assets, and improving recovery, even when the actor's identity or motivation remains uncertain. The practical question is what the actor can do in this environment, not what the label implies in the abstract.
Attribution is the process of assessing who is responsible for malicious activity, and it is often more difficult than the first evidence suggests. Investigators may examine behavior patterns, selected targets, timing, infrastructure, tools, communications, access methods, and what the actor does with obtained information. None of those clues should be treated as automatic proof by itself. Tools are shared, techniques are copied, infrastructure can be rented or compromised, and actors may deliberately imitate others. A location associated with a network address does not necessarily reveal the person's location, nationality, employer, or sponsor. Good analysis separates what is observed from what is inferred and states the confidence of the conclusion. Operational decisions often must be made before perfect attribution is possible, so defenders should contain harmful behavior, protect affected assets, and preserve evidence while the identity assessment continues. Several common mistakes weaken the way organizations discuss threat actors. One is calling malware a threat actor, even though malware is usually a tool controlled or deployed by an actor. Another is treating every insider as malicious, when an insider may be careless, manipulated, or compromised rather than intentionally responsible. A third mistake is assigning a famous group name as soon as one familiar technique appears. That can narrow the investigation too early and cause evidence that does not fit the assumption to be ignored. People also confuse motive with effect, such as assuming that any outage proves a disruption-focused actor, or that any data theft proves espionage. These mistakes matter because labels influence priorities, communication, and control selection. Precise language keeps the team focused on what is known, what remains uncertain, and what action is justified by the evidence. A practical way to apply the concept is to build a threat actor statement from evidence rather than from reputation. Start by identifying the responsible party only at the level you can support, such as an unknown individual, an organized group, a malicious insider, or a sponsored organization. Then describe the observed action, the immediate objective, the assets involved, and the likely motivation, while clearly separating confirmed facts from assessment. Add what is known about capability, access, persistence, and opportunity. This produces a more useful picture than attaching a dramatic name without proof. The statement should then guide decisions about monitoring, containment, access control, recovery, communication, and ownership. When new evidence appears, update the assessment rather than defending the first label. The test is simple. Every claim about the actor should connect to evidence, and every defensive action should connect to a plausible behavior or consequence.
A threat actor is the person, group, or organization that makes or directs the malicious choices behind cyber activity. It is not the malware, the vulnerability, the alert, the attack technique, or the damage left behind, although all of those may reveal something about the actor. Money, espionage, disruption, ideology, and curiosity are useful motivation categories because they help explain what an actor may value, but they do not replace evidence, and they do not predict behavior with certainty. A sound assessment combines motive with capability, intent, access, opportunity, and observed conduct. That approach improves investigations because it prevents tools and effects from being mistaken for the responsible party. It also improves defensive decisions because controls can be matched to the behavior, assets, and consequences that actually matter. The most reliable practice is to describe the actor at the level the evidence supports and make security decisions that remain useful even while identity and motive are still being refined.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.